Hi guys, Kenny here, and today I want to bring this up. I want to kind of give a brief overall 12,000 kilometer technical and maintenance review of the Bullet 350. What makes 12,000 kilometers notably a milestone, I guess, is that the first long-term maintenance is due. I'm going to put that somewhere around 15,000 kilometers. And what I really want to do is go over my experience with the Bullet 350. Just straight, no bullshit, my 0 to 12,000 experience with this bike. The good and bad, the ugly, everything. So if this is going to be very technical and quite rather long, but hear me out here. I've got a log of the work I've done on this motorcycle, and I've got it here on my phone. It exists as a Google Keep document, and I got various things I want to cover on what it's like maintaining the Bullet 350 up to 12,000 kilometers. Mostly by myself. The Bullet 350 was bought with very low kilometers. I bought it brand new. Let me get through here. And the first oil change was done at 600 kilometers. The breaking in, as I was a new rider and I was breaking things in, I didn't go too crazy. I didn't go balls out, revving it everywhere. So I felt like it had a pretty good break-in period, and 600 kilometers was when I first did my oil change. No issues there. Everything came out fine. That service and oil change was done at my dealership. After having done that, and throughout this whole time, I've been doing the maintenance YouTube videos, and I've been kind of researching how to maintain this vehicle, the motorcycle. And I really bought this with the intent that I wanted to keep it as independent of the dealership as possible. So do all the maintenance work and the upkeep. And this is one of the reasons why I kind of looked into and chose a single cylinder air cooled, low power motorcycle, very low stress, very low strung. And I like the fact that it's all metal. I hear a lot of people talking about this being that being plastic. It's actually metal. It's the casing that's around underneath that's plastic, but it's such a small part of the motorcycle and easily replaceable. What else? After 600 kilometers, my second oil change was at 5,000 kilometers, which I started doing on my own. So I've done 2 oil changes since 5,000 kilometers, done my second oil change. In that meantime, between the 0 to 5,000 kilometers, I have perhaps changed the tension on my chain, adjusted, I guess, the tension and the slack about 2-3 times. Surprisingly, since then, I may have adjusted around 9,000 as far as the chain goes, but up till now, I find that the slack is very minimal. So I think once you've done the initial chain adjustments, it eases up after a period of time. It starts to hit this groove where it stresses very little, but it will do a fair bit of stretching at the start. I did my own valves at 9,000 kilometers, and there are videos of me doing the valve adjustment. It took about an hour and a half, but not overly complicated. Tedious, but not overly complicated. No issues there with the valve adjustment. I found one of the valves to be a little bit off, but the other valve was completely fine, and I almost didn't touch the. I don't know if it's inlet or exhaust, sadly, but I know that I only had to adjust one of the valves. It was off by a little bit, and yeah, that seemed fine. No issues there. Last oil change was done at 9,153 kilometers. I'm now just past 12,000. I plan to do my next oil change at 14 or 15,000. As far as service, I think that's pretty much it. One of the things that I also should mention that is periodically, especially if obviously you oil change and oil and lube your chains as required, but don't forget to clean this cover here. This is where the front sprocket sits, and it does pick up a little bit of grease and muck. Everything seems to go in there and get flung, and I think rather quickly and violently. So pop this cover off. You shouldn't need to pop this cover off. You really don't need to torque this too tight. It's just a cover, and use some brake cleaner. Clean this guy out. Couple of issues I've had. The issues I've had with this motorcycle. I don't know if this is my experience, but I don't feel like the bolts and threads are of like a particularly high quality. And the issue here that I first encountered was the bolts for the steering handlebar grip, handlebar mount. I've lost the bolt there. And luckily I was able to back the bolt out. I've since switched to a harder bolt, a hardened, much tougher bolt, and that seems to hold okay. This handlebar slipped quite a fair bit after having done some adjustments. And to be honest, like I have made the mistake of pushing this up my trailer just using the handlebars. So I may have inadvertently kind of lost some of that, what do you call it? The grooves in the handlebar that kind of secures it to the forks. What's the word for this guy? I don't know. It's the grooves in the handlebar that helps you hold. I've since just kind of slapped on a piece of emery cloth. So there's a piece of emery cloth wedged in there to hold everything down, and it seems to be doing okay. I think I just really got finicky with adjusting my handlebar, and I kind of wore through that. I kind of got finicky with mirrors, and I used to have a handlebar bracket that kind of ran through here, like a what do you call this guy? Let me show you. This guy, this doodad, I used to have it mounted here, and it did it did well for holding all my phones and devices. However, I think I just started torquing it down way too tight, thinking I cured the vibrations. The threads on this left mirror mount has stripped, and I've since used and switched over to bar end mirrors. What other issues have I had? I added a USB to a USB charger and voltmeter to the battery. Didn't start on me a couple times because I simply just realized that the battery terminal was loose. That's been tightened. That's been fine. Engine indicator lights. For some reason, in the spring of this year, I would get a lot of engine lights coming on, and it seemingly goes away and then comes on. And this is, mind you, it's like 4 degrees, 5 degrees Celsius weather. Since it's now warmed up, I have not had an engine light. So I think I suspect it might have something to do with temperature just starting up, but I've had no issues with the engine light since. And I've got the DNA filter put on at around 9,000 kilometers as well. So, new air filter. I've had no issues with the throttle cable loosening. That's been totally okay. I've been checking on the throttle cable. That's been okay. Really, it's been super easy to maintain. I've had no issues with brake fluids. It's been pretty solid all the way up to 12,000 kilometers. I have periodically checked my spoke tension, and I do have a little device, a little wrench that tightens the spokes. But I think every 3,000 kilometers, you ought to check the spokes and make sure they're tight and taut. And if not, tighten those. But that pretty much puts me up to looking at what's ahead of me for 15,000 kilometers. I plan to do an oil change at 14,000 kilometers, a filter check at 15,000 kilometers. That really means I just got to check my DNA filter, whether it's clean or dirty. If it's dirty, give it a. I'll have to purchase the cleaning kit, but get that cleaned up. But the reason I got the DNA is really just so I could just do the maintenance, and instead of having to constantly buy paper filters, just accept a little bit of tiny bit of difference in performance and just clean the filter as I go. So it's more of an economical decision for me. And I bought the DNA air filter, just so you know, without the snorkel, the custom snorkel. So the air intake is the same, if that makes sense. The intake is the same stock cover. What else? I think that's pretty much it. I have broken the bolts on the oil filter cover. And that's just over tightening because it kept leaking for a while. And what I really need to do before I reach self reminder, the 15,000 kilometer mark, is to purchase a compact torque wrench. So when I'm just going over these small bolts, it's very easy for me to not pick up my large torque wrench to check, but I think a little one is going to really help for just the things going on in a motorcycle. I might consider an electric, like the ones that beep when it hits a certain tension or certain torque. But I need to get I need to get a small torque wrench. I think that's going to be in the works for the toolbox. I think that's pretty much it. I really have found, if you are familiar with automotive maintenance, and you're somewhat accustomed to wrenching, and I've worked on bikes for most of my life, I honestly don't know the details of derailleurs and gears, but most things on a bike I'm pretty familiar with and know what to look out for. And overall, I think the Bullet has been super easy to maintain. I think what I might lack is, I should mention, I did have a spark plug put in at around 10,000 kilometers. I think technically you can stretch it up to 15,000 kilometers if you haven't noticed any issues. But I felt like I should just get a new spark plug, put it in. That way I have a backup spark plug. And I might just run this for a while because there was really no need for me to change up my spark plug. But just having a second was sort of nice to gives me a little peace of mind. So I've got a little sheet of things that I ought to look into. Wheel bearings and steering head bearings, I've kind of give them a spin. I kind of give the fork itself a little bit of a rock to see if there's any resistance. Everything seems to be okay. I've done bolt checks here and there throughout. And what I have found that have kind of loosened up It's really only been like the crash bar itself. And that's only because I've probably dropped this bike 3, 4 times. Um, Having crash bars and dropping this bike, um, it doesn't feel great, but like if you own bicycles, you kind of realize no matter how nice the bike is, it's just going to be scratched, used. My brand new bike, well, when it was brand new bicycle, um, I leaned it up against the wall and just took a coat of paint right off. I mean, it happens. Um, I've dropped this bike. Mostly, it's all been pretty slow speed stuff. So the crash bars have a little bit of a scratch, and you may have worked the bolts loose a little bit. I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, that's the maintenance that I've done so far on this Bullet 350. Um, Oil consumption, brake. I haven't noticed anything leaking with the oil. As far as the brakes go, I still have like I want to say like 4 millimeters of pad on the rear brakes. Um, Plenty of padding on the front brakes. I have not noticed anything weird with the brake fluid levels, front and back. Um, One thing I do want to mention is that it is rather tricky, and either I just don't know how to read the fluid levels on this front reservoir. I tend to take the cover off and peek in, and you kind of got to take your time with it to make sure you don't mess it up or get contaminants in there. Um, what has concerned me was that most recently, I guess, is that there's a bit of a tap that goes on, and I can hear it at the top of the engine, and I suspect it's a valve. And it ticks, and then when you rev it up, the tick does speed up. I've heard and I've done some research, and that seems to be a normal mechanical thing that happens with this particular engine. Um, so yeah, that's sort of my maintenance update, all the way up to 12,000 kilometers. Tire pressure, there's been no leaks with my tires. The wear bar on my tires, I think they're kind of close, if not a little past halfway on their wear. And I probably will, I probably am seriously considering going to like a 70/30, 70 road, 30% off road tire for my next set of tires. So if you guys have anything to recommend tire wise for something like that, all I'm looking for is something that's a little bit off road capable, but mostly will stay. This bike will mostly stay on roads, gravel, and very rarely off either of those things. But I'd like to have some capability there. So yeah, I'm leaning towards 70/30. I will do another video where I kind of talk about the mods and adjustments, add-ons I put on this bike, but that's the technical maintenance review and my log so far. I don't think I missed anything else. Couple things. Oh, throttle body cleaning. I plan to do a throttle body cleaning, but I've heard that if there aren't any major issues with idling, rough acceleration, I should just kind of leave it alone until maybe much later. And I've also heard, as far as the valve clearance goes, unless you notice anything off with these, and I believe they're kind of fairly easy to tell because you've just got two valves going here, I could probably stretch that out. And maybe perhaps consider a valve clearance check. Oh, closer to like 20,000 kilometers if no issues arise. I know the official, I think the official valve clearance checks are like 6,000 kilometers or something. But Royal Enfield is very conservative with their maintenance. They kind of want you to get these done earlier rather than later. So, yeah, super easy to maintain. I've had no issues with doing the oil changes. That's been pretty easy. The biggest challenge, I think, for me has been the valve clearance checks, but I've only done one. I can't give you too much on that. My suspension setting is on the second stiffest. So it's if one was plush, 5 was like the stiffest. I'm on 2, and that's just because I have occasionally put cargo on there and I kind of overloaded a bit with grocery runs, things like that. So that's it. Hope you find this interesting and helpful, and that's been my experience, the good and the bad. So the bad's only been like broken balls, and that's partly on me. Cheers, and I'll look forward to doing a little video clip next time on just what mods I've done, what I find worked for me, and how I made this thing a little bit more specialized or personal for myself. Thanks, guys. Take care and ride safe.